Alright guys, so today's lesson is going to kind of be a review of kind of what you watched yesterday, but all this stuff is really important. Guys, you're going to see this stuff on the test, and some of you guys are going to have to take what they call the end of program assessment, or COSA is what we used to call it. The end of program assessment, if you take 3 ag classes within a pathway, so this pathway is power, structures, and technical systems. So like if you took freshman class, ag biology, small engines, ag construction, ag building structures and designs, you guys will have to take that EOP, or end of program assessment. So you're going to see questions like this on the test, so I wanted to kind of review this and then kind of put it in my own terms too, of what I think about them. I've got 3 welding rods here. Ignore this one. I had to pull out the old welder that we've got. You guys have seen, some of you guys have seen that huge one, because it's Hick and Run DC, or direct current. So I had to pull it out and I had to kind of test it because I've never really used it much before. But, and the dial's broke on it that sets the amperage. So I had to kind of test it out real quick, so that's why I've used this one. But this first one we're going to talk about is a 60-10 electrode, 60-10. And on a 60-10, guys, the 4 numbers represent different things. The first 2 numbers, 60, stand for 60,000 pound tensile strength. So it can withstand 60,000 pounds of strength being put onto it if it's welded properly. So this one is 60,000 pounds. The 1 stands for, which is the 3rd digit, the 1 stands for the different positions that you can weld it in. So if it's a 1, you can weld in all positions. So a 60-10, a 60-11, a 70-18 rod can be welded in all positions. Okay, so this welding rod, we can weld it, I can weld it flat, I can weld it vertical up, vertical down, I can weld it horizontally, and I can weld it overhead. Okay, I can weld above my head. So these welding rods are designed for that. Now if this was, for example, a 60-24 welding rod, the 2 would stand for, it can only be used in flat positions or horizontal positions. It can't do vertical or overhead because the weld will drip off of it. Okay, so the 1, the 3rd digit 1 stands for all positions. So I can weld this rod, and this rod in any position that I want to. Okay, and the last number, the 0, stands for the type of flux, which is this stuff on the outside of it. Let me get you one. So this stuff that's on the outside of it, stuff that I just chipped off there, hopefully you can kind of see it, that's what type it is. Okay, so this is a digging flux. So when I weld with it, you can see that you make, it's picked up, you will dig into it. So you can kind of see, I was just playing to kind of show you, but you're digging into the metal with this type. Okay, so these welding rods, 60-10, they're a little bit different. They have to be run on direct current, or DC. Okay, they have to be run on direct current because of the way that they're made too. Okay, so these are good little welding rods, and I'll weld with it here in just a few minutes after I go through these. These are good little welding rods to use if you have a welder that's direct current. Our welders that we have here at school, guys, are AC units, or alternating current. So they're AC or alternating currents. So we can't really weld with these. You can, but it looks awful. It doesn't do as good of a job. So we won't use these in class. But 60-10 are good welding rods. They're basically a 60-11 for the most part. And that's the one we'll talk about next. So this is a 60-11 rod, and this is the one that you will use the most in class. This is the one that we use for a welding contest. And these are just all around rods that basically you could take them out to the farm, or you could take them out, and work on a piece of machinery that needs to be welded. It could be rusty, it could have a lot of mill scale on it, it don't matter. These rods here basically weld anything. They'll weld the world, is what someone told me one time. Basically, they can weld anything, any type of steel, rusty, mill scaled, nasty, it don't matter. A lot of farmers that stick weld, they use the 6011. Let's go through the numbers on it. So on this, you can see it says 6011. The 60 stands for 60,000 tensile strength, 60,000 pound tensile strength. The 1, the third digit, the 1 stands for any position. So once again, I can weld flat, I can weld horizontal, I can weld vertical up, vertical down, I can weld overhead. Okay, I can weld however position that I want to with it. So these welding rods are good for that. And these are more alternating current. So I've always been told that you can run them with direct current too. And that stuff. But for us guys, we're going to use them on alternating current. They do not make a real pretty weld. Like this rod that we're getting ready to talk about next. But 6011 is a good rod if you're wanting, if you're just wanting to weld something together. These make a good rod. If you're a good welder, you can make a 6011 look good. I'm not a great welder, but I can make a decent looking weld with the 6011. Give me a little bit of time with it, and you'll probably laugh at my welds, you guys that are really good welders. But 6011 is a good rod to do those kind of things with. The next rod we're going to talk about, and this is what most people prefer to run, that do a lot of welding and stuff. One of the rods that a lot of people enjoy using, and this is a 7018 welding rod. We'll go through the numbers real quick. The 70 stands for 70,000 pound tensile strength, so these are a little bit stronger. The 1 stands for any position, so one more time, I can weld flat, I can weld horizontal, I can weld vertical up, I can weld vertical down, I can weld overhead, okay? Probably gonna get tired of hearing me say that after a while, but hopefully that'll stick in your mind. So the 1 basically means I can weld in any position. The 8, the flux on this is a little bit different. It's a low hydrogen. And when we weld with this, guys, you're gonna see that the slag, and slag is this stuff that's left over right here. So this is off of 6011. This slag will just peel right off, okay? So, and we'll show you how to clean and the difference between those here in a second. But this rod is an all-around good rod. You can weld, it's one of those that you can kind of weld the world with it too. Clean the metal with it though, a little bit more than you would with the 6011 in my opinion. Some people may tell you a different story with that, but that's kind of what I was always told with it. Regardless, guys, clean your metal before you weld whatever it is. Grind it, take a wire wheel to it, take a wire brush to it, whatever. Try to get it cleaned up so that your welds look better and stuff. So, but that's the 3 rods that, that my dad uses the most, and these are the ones that, I really like. A 6013 is another rod that you can use too, and it's a good rod. It makes welds kind of look more like the 7018. But if I'm going to go out on the farm and weld, or if I'm going to weld on a piece of machinery, 6010, if I've got the right welder that's direct current, I'll use a 6010. If I don't, if I'm using an old buzz box or whatever, I prefer a 7018, but I'll use a 6011 too. So you can use either one for that. So you just have to kind of find what works for you and kind of do that. This was a 6010. I picked up the wrong one. But that's kind of what I've got on electrodes. The next video, guys, I'm going to show you kind of what the weld looks like, and kind of show you how to weld with it, and also show you how to set up yourself to weld. So those are some key things to kind of talk about there. So